Welcome to the session, Student Success Requires Both Digital Accessibility and Disability Inclusion. If you're just joining us, please note that remote attendees can put their questions in the Q&A panel, not the chat panel. No one is moderating the chat panel, so if you put your questions in there, also for attendees here in the room, please hold questions until the end of the session, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. If we don't get to them, some presenters will be here or online from 5 to 5:30, or they will try to answer questions individually in the next few days. Dr. Jeffrey Ricker is a professor emeritus in cognitive and experimental psychology. He was a professor of psychology for more than 25 years and has taught many courses in psychology and biology. He began to lose his vision in 2017 and now is completely blind. Currently, he studies the effects of negative stereotypes on the educational and occupational opportunities open to people with disabilities. Dr. Ricker is here today to tell us what students with disabilities need to feel valued as individuals and welcomed into ASU's campus life. From his unique perspective, he'll give us insight into how we at ASU can meet the diverse needs of students with disabilities and achieve a culture of disability inclusion. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ricker.
All right, let me check that. Okay, you can hear me, all right. And the first slide has my name. It does have my email address, and so if you have any questions that aren't answered here today, please feel free to email me. I will have a rough draft of the presentation up on the website there. I'm hoping by the end of the weekend. I don't have many PowerPoint slides because, well, they don't help me a whole lot. And so I only made a few, but I'll be talking and trying to describe in more detail in the talk and in my draft paper some of the issues that to be discussed. So from 1994 until 2020, I was a professor of psychology at Scottsdale Community College. Although I have a long history with ASU, I did my first postdoc here in the Department of Zoology, back when there was a Department of Zoology. I did fruit fly genetics, and I worked with people with schizophrenia too. So I was a behavioral geneticist. I taught human genetics and introduction to biology. I also, from 2006 to 2013, was the Maricopa representative to ASU's General Studies Council, both at the Tempe campus and the West Campus, back when the West Campus had its own General Studies Council. So I've been through quite a bit of history with ASU. My daughter currently works here in the Ed Plus program, so it's moving on to the next generation. In 2017, I began to lose my vision, and I've been completely blind since 2020. Today, I will share my experiences as an educator of people with disabilities and as a person with a disability. As an educator of people with disabilities, I know how difficult it can be to create accessible course materials and to provide accommodations. And I'm talking here primarily about testing accommodations for assignments, not all the other various accommodations. I'm trying to keep it simple. As a person with a disability, I know the many challenges that students face when trying to get an education. Here's an example of the latter. Recently, I enrolled in an online course. The course taught students how to format documents for publication in medical journals. The course consisted of a series of video lectures. The videos included PowerPoint slides. I asked the instructor if the slides were available for download so I could read them in my screen reader. She answered no and added, "Blind people can't do this work anyways." But I know people who are blind or visually impaired who successfully perform similar work, and I assured the instructor that I am able to research, write, edit, and format documents for publication. Rather than allowing me to download the slides, she offered only to refund the cost of the course. So it should go without saying that when instructors resist making course materials accessible, student learning suffers. One other thing I want to say, this is my first presentation in public to a large audience since I went blind, so bear with me if I have some problems. Students with disabilities also must be provided with reasonable testing accommodations. A frequent accommodation is extra time. Some instructors wonder if this accommodation is necessary or fair to other students. I can tell you that in my case, I do need more time now when researching topics online. I constantly go to sites that I haven't accessed before. I first must learn the layout of this site before I can delve further into the details. This takes a lot more time now that I'm blind. What I was able to do in 10 minutes when I had vision now can take an hour or more. So accommodations, as already stated, are intended to level the playing field for students with disabilities, whether they do so or not. But it is understandable if some faculty are not convinced. They want to make sure that their academic standards are upheld. That's their job. But students with disabilities have a different concern. A major challenge for them is faculty resistance to creating accessible course content and providing reasonable accommodations. And I don't mean, I'm not picking on faculty here today, it's just the research in general does show that faculty resistance is a major problem. I'm sure all the faculty in here are quite open to making things accessible, but I just want to talk about the research here. So in this talk, I want to address faculty concerns about accessibility and accommodations. And I also want to touch upon the general issue of disability inclusion. Disability inclusion entails everything that colleges and universities can do to show students with disabilities that they are valued members of the campus community. Faculty are central to creating a culture of disability inclusion because they have more direct contact with students than pretty much anyone else. My ultimate goal is to enlist all faculty as allies in creating a culture of disability inclusion. I talked the other night with a class of people in a graduate program for social workers, and I realized that their conception of disability is very limited, and I think it's very limited for a lot of people, and perhaps many faculty. So I wanted briefly to talk about what we mean by disability. It's impossible to give a definition that everyone agree on. I think that in its broadest sense, disability refers to impairments of body or mind that negatively impact functioning and important life activities such as at work, school, interpersonal relationships. The accessibility movement is based on what might be called the social model of disability. This model states that an impairment like blindness or deafness is not by itself a disability. Rather, disability emerges from the disabling effects of the shared communal environments we create as members of society. For example, up to the 1970s, many colleges and universities disabled people who were blind, deaf, paralyzed, and so on by denying them admission to their institutions. Today, students with sensory, motor, cognitive, learning, and other impairments are disabled when course content is not fully accessible, and reasonable accommodations are not provided. Faculty resistance is an important reason for inaccessibility and lack of accommodations. And I wish I had not missed the student presentations this morning. I want to go back and listen to those. Please bring up PowerPoint slide 2. My PowerPoint slides primarily are just quotes about the topics I'll be discussing. Why might faculty resist making their course content accessible? Faculty are pulled in many directions. The demands on their times can be enormous. It's understandable that some faculty would resist spending the time and effort needed to learn about accessibility. Faculty sometimes justify this resistance by pointing to a variety of concerns. Sometimes the concerns are trivial. For instance, I just read an account by a deaf student whose instructor said that she would not allow sign language interpreters in her classroom because they distracted her. And this is an interesting objection, and it also shows that faculty, at least some faculty, may need further education about the legal requirements for accessibility and accommodations. Faculty also have more substantive reasons to resist accessibility. For example, the use of plain language and shorter sentences is recommended for students with certain cognitive impairments. And some faculty may see this as dumbing down their course content. We like long, scholarly sentences with many clauses and big jargon, and it sounds, well, more scholarly. So it's reasonable that faculty would worry about the rigor of their courses, but when they object to this, their objection must be looked at very carefully. The validity of the objection must be examined very carefully in each case. Making readings easier to understand does not require us to discard information. And making it more understandable will help everyone, whether or not they have a disability. I admit that I too have been guilty of resistance to making course material accessible. Over the years, I created a number of websites for my students. The sites included required readings. The readings, of course, had many figures and other images. People who are blind cannot see them, as I have discovered recently. To make them accessible to students who are blind or have low vision, images must include brief descriptions called alternative text or alt text. But I didn't want to spend all the time writing alternative text for what are really hundreds of images. I reasoned that in all my years of teaching, I had seen only a handful of students who used a white cane or had an obviously severe visual impairment. I thought, why should I spend all that time creating alt text when it would rarely benefit my students? Now I can tell my younger self why I was wrong. I was wrong because I didn't appreciate that most disabilities, including visual impairments, are not apparent to others, to outside observers. For example, many years ago, I had a student who came to me for help. He was struggling with the readings. I recommend what I thought was an effective strategy for learning the material. He kept performing poorly on the tests, and I knew he was working hard. He finally told me that he had traumatic brain injuries from an accident several years before. And since that time, he had trouble processing new information. His problems with processing information made it difficult for him to remember what he had read and to use that information on the tests. Nothing at all about his appearance or outward behavior indicated that he had a severe cognitive impairment. Given his impairment, my strategy was completely ineffective, and I did not know at that time about using plain language. This student needed assessment and rehabilitation from experts, and I did try to get some for him, but this was perhaps 25 years ago, and the sort of help that he needed was perhaps not as forthcoming, working through disability services and other agencies. So he just did not get the help he needed, and he disappeared from my class, which upset me greatly at the time. But this example shows that we must distinguish visible from invisible disabilities. Visible disabilities include impairments like blindness, deafness, and paralysis. Invisible hidden disabilities include impairments like dyscalculia, attention deficit disorder, and autism. About 20% of undergraduates have a reported disability, but perhaps as few as 10% of all students with disabilities have visible disabilities. The vast majority of students with disabilities have hidden or invisible disabilities, and many of these students do not report them when they enter college. In fact, less than 40% of all students with disabilities actually report them. Because so many disabilities are invisible and many students don't report them, faculty are likely to greatly underestimate the number of students with disabilities in their classes. Thus, I argue that it is well worth the time and effort required to develop accessible course materials. Furthermore, even students without disabilities are helped by making course materials accessible. For example, students with low vision are helped by making sure there is sufficient contrast between text and background on a web page. But it also can help to reduce eye strain in readers without any visual impairments. Could I have the next slide, please? Your courses probably will never be completely accessible. There are too many disabilities, and a lot of the research on accessibility is done with visible disabilities, especially visual impairments. It is best to think of accessibility as existing on a continuum. Your goal should be to constantly improve the accessibility of your course material. So in this PowerPoint slide, I present some resources for creating accessible electronic documents. The first item is an article I published almost a year ago now in a journal called Medical Writing. It's the official journal of the European Medical Writing Association, called Enabling People with Disabilities, Creating Accessible Electronic Documents. And in that, I provide some guidelines for creating accessible headings, links, tables, images with alt text. I talk about CART. I also talk about something related to that called re-speaking, which I think is used primarily in places like the UK, where they rapidly speak again what they just heard, and somehow the software will translate it. I don't know how good that is, but CART, I think, is used mostly in the United States. The second item is an excellent course from the Utah State University, which helps you learn how to create electronic documents using Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Adobe Acrobat. It's a 5-week.
It's about time.
Time for what?
Time for questions.
Really?
That's quick.
Oh my God, how'd that happen? This talk was at 22 minutes. So what's the time? What's the time, please?
11:21 and 8 seconds.
Okay, I have to, okay, let me, so the course is excellent. 5-week course, you can get a certificate in it, relatively expensive. See, I was thinking I would speak until 11:25, so sorry about that. I probably should have asked. The last one is an online course on the World Wide Web Consortium, looking at the fundamentals of web pages, the accessibility of web pages. Okay. I want to talk about one more thing, please, if you allow me. I want to talk about disability inclusion. So, the primary problem for students with disability are negative attitudes of others, faculty, staff, whoever it might be, So for me, I've noticed a lot of changes in how people treat me. For example, people often ask me, who takes care of you? And I say, I take care of myself. Or if I am with someone who accompanies me to an appointment or an event, like the person you just saw, they might ask about my caretaker. No one had ever asked me about my caretaker 5 years ago when I had sight. Recently, someone said to me, who was helping me sign up for transportation, by the way, if I were blind, I would never leave my house. And I thought, what does this mean? She was trying to express sympathy for my plight, I know, but there's a hidden message there that maybe life is not worth living if you're blind. And so my question is, would you want someone as a friend if you thought their life was not worth living or you didn't see them as an equal? Would you want someone as a member of your community if you did not think they had a life worth living or saw them as not your equal? And so this is a problem for a lot of our students, and so I did want to argue for disability inclusion, where we welcome students as another diversity group and show them that they are valued members of our college community. Welcoming them, that's the only way to get beyond these issues of accessibility and accommodation, to show others that, to help them get over these negative attitudes. And I would like eventually to see a conference on disability inclusion. I think it would be well worth the effort. So again, thank you for listening to me, and I'm sorry for running over, but I will take any questions you might have.
Anyone in the room? I don't have any online questions at this time. Okay, there you go, 11:24, you still are finished a minute early.
Oh, okay, because this page said it was till 11:30. Oh, the page I looked at said, okay, went in at 11:30. So, okay, well, that was my confusion.
Okay.
Yeah, the page doesn't leave any breaks. It just runs right up to the edge.
You want to put this out?
Okay, well, sorry about that.
Thank you again, Dr.
All right.
Ricker.
Thank you,
right.
Dr. Ricker.
It's okay.
We will begin the next session, Creating a Pathway for Accessible Course Design, in just a few minutes. Again, we're in the Gold Room here or on the Zoom conference, links.asu.edu/AAAD. That's the same Zoom room for the entire conference. Also, if you get a chance, please go to the schedule page on the conference website and use the QR code to get to the survey regarding the conference. We appreciate any feedback on how to make this conference better. Thank you. We'll resume in 5 minutes.